Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Eddie Marcus here again. I'm back in part 3, if we want to call it that, of The Real Deal. You know, when I left off on that last presentation, the last post, I was talking about people talking about dying and going to hell or heaven. And I was saying how much of a trick that is. You know, got you focusing on something else as opposed to dealing with what's happening today, what's happening right now, what needs to be addressed right now. They want you to focus on addressing something else. And what the response in addressing something else means to be retarded and ignore all the stuff that's happening to you right now while it's doing something fantastic against you and nothing for you. Well, see, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm saying to you in that regard is this. You are living at a time where you have the opportunity to assure to yourselves what's happening. You, my friends, can create heaven right here, right now. Or you can create hell. We do not have heaven, and hell is in the making. This is what is actually happening. You know, what I'm basically saying to you is this. People, when you talk about heaven, you're talking about God. People are not interested in God. They say they are, but they can't see God. So what they'll put their focus on is on what they can see. Now, the story goes that with God, all things are possible. With God, there's an answer to all of the questions. There is a solution to all of the problems with God. And so, since we can't see God, we find a substitute. And in that substitution, for most part, is, or should I say, a people. People. Or it could be an individual. It could be a philosophy of thought that's possessed by a specific group of people. Or it could be anything. But it's not an invisible God. And they can attach to it what they want. And for the most part, in this particular, whatever we're calling it, hell that we're living in, whoever has decided to take the position of God, whether it is an individual, or like they got in Russia and North Korea and other places, or whether it's a group of people, like we got here in the U.S. What is the answer? What's the solution? Are they interested in God? What does God say? What is God all about? All things are possible. All things will happen. What does it require? Well, I'll tell you about that later. Because man, in his role, or her role, or their role, is saying the same thing. You can have whatever you want. But what is required is not the same thing that is required of God. They got another requirement. What I ask you, what do you require? What do you need in your human form to be able to do mostly anything you want to do? I ask you in America. I ask you all over the earth. What does it require that you have possession of in order to be possessive of anything you want to do? What? What did you say? Did you say money? Wow. All over the earth. That's what I just heard. Money. So what does that say? That says to you that what God has said that, or if it didn't say it, is understood. The answer, the solution, has been rejected either because you don't know it, or you come up with something else that works and you really want to be God. In America, you got money, you don't have to worry about your housing. You got money, you don't have to worry about your food and clothing. You got money, you don't have to worry about your education. You got money, you don't have to worry about your health care. You got money, you don't have to worry about your transportation or anything. In fact, you got money, you can now start taking a trip out of the atmosphere somewhere, out of the reach of gravity, and float around for a little bit. If you got money. Do you agree with me, or am I lying to you? I think I'm telling the truth. Wait a minute. I know I'm telling the truth. Now, if you don't have money, what do? Everything else that's going on, that's open to you. See, this God has turned his back on you. You don't have money. This God has turned his back on you. And so this is why preachers out there telling you about God will stay working for the devil. Or should I say, working for the man to get what is required, money, which is replace God, so they can live. They're working for the man so they can get the money that has replaced God so that they can live. And then they want to come and tell you about a God. What can they tell you about a God? Get your money. That's what they can tell you. and hell is constantly being built, and you wonder why. But you want to stand up in a pulpit and tell somebody about some spiritual God, tell somebody about acting a certain way like you acting, working for the demon right here now so you can go to heaven. You sound like you out of your mind. That means spiritual mind as well as your physical mind. But anyway, it is what it is. Now, you might think I'm grandstanding. And to some degree, I might be. But the thing that protects me from grandstanding is that I learned a long time ago that what you build belongs to you. What you build belongs to you. No one else controls it. It's yours. And what you, the people, come together collectively and build, it belongs to you all. And you all control it. And what does it take to include all of you? It takes each of you that would benefit from it, who receives some residuals from it, to engage yourself in the process, whether directly or somebody doing it for you. But the best way is directly. And how do you get yourself to do it directly? You find out what is it that gives you the greatest joy in doing it. Because when you recognize that, that is your reward, the joy that comes from the engagement of your particular gift. And what's the side effect? It connects with all of those other things that others are doing. So that everything that you can imagine that you dream of, that you want to cause a manifestation of, becomes real. That's the real God. That's the power that you can't see God working through you. That's not a Republican. That's not a Democrat. That's not a man. That's not a woman. That's the Spirit living in human beings. And once you know that, you go, if you're preaching for God, you're coming off that job for $50 a year, $50 an hour, or whatever they're paying you. You coming out of that institution that's tied this world down to this ugliness that causes the pain and the wars and stuff and the deaths and stuff that's happening everywhere. You give it up and you start representing what gives life, what brings peace, what brings prosperity and joy, freedom, fulfillment of your dreams, that your needs, your wants, and your desires are met at your leisure. Once you know that, how can you walk around talking about when somebody's lying, you supporting that lie? When somebody's doing all this evil stuff, you walking hand in hand with your head up in there and your chest out. Not that you thinking that you're right. You just don't give a damn. Because no one matters. You don't respect the human race. All you respect is yourself and what you're getting. Now, that sounds like the real deal to me. I can tell you one thing. I get $300 a month from Social Security. Why? Because a long time ago, I learned what I'm telling you. And I had to extract myself from the process. And so I didn't create the credits. Oh, since I've been in this situation, there have been a couple of times that I had to reach out and do something just to survive. And I chose the lowest walk by washing dishes. It's important, but not in the mainstream of things in our system. Washing dishes is a low-life job. I remember my first wage increase was 10 cents. But all the same time, I was calling myself running for president of the United States. Why? And what was I talking to you about? I was talking to you about the same things I just got through explaining. I was talking to you about that heavenliness that you can create. And I want to tell you, at least 4 times I ran for president of the United States. And each time I had to run as a write-in because the people of the United States were not thinking about God. They weren't thinking about peace for everybody. They weren't thinking about prosperity for everybody, joy for everybody, freedom for everybody, dreams coming true for everybody. That's the American thought. You must be out of your mind. Everybody having food? No, America's not for that. Everybody having shelter? America's not for that. Education, healthcare? America's not for that. Everybody? You must be crazy. America lives on you not having access to those things because that's the way of the world. That's the way this particular society thinks. This is the way they've been brought up to think not about love. All they want to do is have sex. And the consequences of it, the responsibilities that come with it. Oh, what's that? I think, ladies and gentlemen, I'll just leave it there. I believe maybe some of you got my message. I want to thank you for staying with me. Goodbye.